You think you know what filled a 1960s soul food kitchen? Think again. Beyond the cast iron and cornmeal, Black families kept items that told deeper stories of survival and cultural pride. Here are 30 forgotten items in every 1960s soul food kitchen. The lard bucket sat near every 1960s soul food stove, holding rendered pork fat that gave fried chicken its legendary crunch and biscuits their flaky tenderness. These metal containers, often repurposed from store-bought shortening, became kitchen heirlooms passed between generations who understood that nothing fried quite right without pure lard. The fat was rendered at home after hog killings, strained through cheesecloth, and stored where it stayed solid for months. Grandmothers measured by hand, scooping just enough to coat cast iron before laying down catfish or pork chops. The bucket represented self-sufficiency and wisdom about using every part of the animal. Though vegetable oils replaced lard in later decades, those who remember recall how nothing since has matched its magic. The flour sifter hung on kitchen walls or sat in pantry corners, its handle worn smooth from countless mornings making biscuits and Sunday cakes. African American cooks in the 1960s understood that sifted flour meant lighter biscuits and airier cakes, cranking those metal contraptions religiously before every batch. The rhythmic squeak of the turning mechanism became familiar kitchen soundtrack, signaling something delicious was coming together. Flour came in large cloth sacks that served double duty as dish towels when emptied, and sifting removed lumps or weevils that might have invaded the supply. Mothers taught daughters the proper technique, showing how many turns produced the finest powder. Though modern cooks rarely bother with sifting, those metal cylinders once stood as essential tools where homemade bread appeared daily. The meat grinder clamped onto kitchens, tables throughout Black households, turning tough cuts into ground meat that stretched family budgets further than store-bought could. These cast iron contraptions required muscle and patience as cooks fed chunks of pork shoulder through grinding plates while children took turns cranking handles. The grinder transformed less desirable cuts into sausage patties, meatloaf, and hash that fed growing families on tight budgets. Women gathered after hog killings to process meat together, their grinders turning for hours while gossip filled kitchens. The tool represented community and resourcefulness, showing how hard work created abundance from modest means. Though electric processors replaced hand-cranked models, the rhythm of grinding connected generations who understood good food required effort. Canning jars lined basement shelves and pantry walls in every 1960s soul food kitchen, their glass surfaces revealing summer's bounty preserved for winter tables. African American families filled these vessels with pickled peaches, chow chow, green tomato relish, and watermelon rind preserves. The jars represented security and planning, proof that families could feed themselves when produce disappeared and money ran short. Women gathered during harvest season for canning marathons, filling kitchens with steam and boiling vinegar aromas. Children helped wash jars and pack vegetables while learning recipes stretching back through generations. The satisfying pop of sealing lids meant another batch ready to carry families through cold months. Those glass jars stood between families and hunger, contents representing love measured in quarts. The icebox stood in kitchens and back porches long after electric refrigerators became common, especially in rural Black communities where electricity remained unreliable. These wooden cabinets lined with zinc held blocks of ice delivered by icemen who knew every family's needs. Children waited for delivery days, hoping to catch ice chips falling from the wagon while mothers arranged food around the cold blocks. The icebox taught lessons about planning and preservation as families learned which foods belonged in colder spots and how to minimize door openings. Drip pans underneath caught melting water that had to be emptied daily. Even after refrigerators arrived, many families kept calling them ice boxes, the old name carrying memories of times when keeping food fresh required daily attention and management. The pie safe stood in kitchen corners and dining rooms, its punched tin panels allowing air circulation while keeping flies away from cooling baked goods. African American families treasured these wooden cabinets as both practical storage and furniture pieces, often passing them between generations along with recipes for pies inside. The decorative tin patterns varied from simple holes to elaborate designs featuring stars or geometric shapes. Mothers placed sweet potato pies, cobblers, and pound cakes behind those protective doors, letting them cool while filling kitchens with tempting aromas that tested children's patience. The pie safe represented hospitality and abundance, always ready to offer something sweet to unexpected visitors. Before reliable refrigeration, these cabinets kept baked goods fresh for days without spoiling. The butter churn sat in kitchens and spring houses where Black families turned fresh cream into golden butter that spread across hot biscuits and cornbread. These wooden or ceramic vessels required patience and strong arms as the rhythmic plunging of dashers transformed liquid into solid through sheer determination. Children often took turns at the churn, learning that some pleasures require real work before they could be enjoyed. The buttermilk left behind became equally valuable, used in biscuits, cornbread, and pancakes that gave baked goods their tender crumb. Farm families who kept cows produced their own butter regularly, while urban households might churn cream purchased from markets. The churn represented self-sufficiency and satisfaction of creating something from raw ingredients through honest effort and patience. The coffee grinder mounted on kitchen walls or sat on countertops, its wooden box and metal mechanism producing fresh grounds that filled homes with rich aromas each morning. African American households bought whole beans that stayed fresh longer than pre-ground coffee, making the grinder an essential daily tool. The hand crank mechanism required consistent effort, and the drawer below caught grounds ready for percolators that bubbled throughout morning hours. Children learned to measure beans by eye, grinding just enough for the household pot without wasting precious coffee. The smell of fresh ground beans signaled the start of each day, calling family members to tables for breakfast. Though electric grinders replaced manual models, the morning ritual connected families to slower rhythms where quality mattered more than speed. The washboard leaned against kitchen sinks and wash tubs, its ridged surface scrubbing grease and stains from aprons, dish towels, and cloths that kept soul food kitchens running clean. African American cooks knew that kitchen textiles required special attention, and the washboard provided scrubbing power that simple soaking could never match. Hot water, lye soap, and elbow grease combined against those metal ridges to remove bacon grease, collard green stains, and evidence of daily cooking on fabric. Women's hands grew rough from washboard work, their knuckles bearing testament to labor required for household cleanliness. The washboard represented the invisible work behind every good meal, the constant cycle of dirtying and cleaning. Though washing machines replaced manual scrubbing, the washboard remained handy for stubborn stains. The vinegar cruet sat on kitchen tables and near stoves, its glass body holding tangy liquid that brightened the greens, balanced beans, and provided acid backbone of countless soul food dishes. African American cooks understood vinegar's transformative power, splashing it into pots of collards, over fried fish, and across plates of black-eyed peas to cut through richness and awaken flavors. The cruet kept vinegar accessible without trips to pantry shelves, encouraging cooks to season freely. Some families made their own vinegar from apple scraps, filling cruets with homemade versions. Children learned to appreciate vinegar's bite, watching elders shake generous amounts over food that seemed complete until that final splash brought everything together. The cruet represented understanding that seasoning continued until the last moment. The sugar bowl with lid sat at the center of every kitchen table, its ceramic or glass body holding sweetness that transformed morning coffee and after-dinner tea. African American families kept these covered vessels filled and ready, understanding that hospitality meant always having sugar available for guests who might drop by unexpectedly. The lid protected contents from flies and moisture while signaling that this household maintained proper standards. Children learned early not to dip wet spoons into the sugar, a lesson enforced by grandmothers who watched kitchen manners closely. The bowl traveled between table and counter throughout the day, appearing wherever sweetening was needed. Some families inherited sugar bowls from previous generations, their chips and cracks telling stories of decades of daily use. The molasses jug stood in pantries and on back shelves, its dark contents providing sweetness and depth to soul food dishes when white sugar was scarce or expensive. African American cooks poured this thick syrup over biscuits, stirred it into baked beans, and used it to sweeten gingerbread and spice cakes that filled kitchens with warm aromas. Molasses carried iron and minerals that refined sugar lacked, making it both flavor and nutrition in one pour. Children often received spoonfuls as medicine or treat, the strong taste becoming familiar comfort. The jug's narrow neck controlled the pour, preventing waste of this precious pantry staple. Blackstrap molasses, the darkest variety, appeared in kitchens where health and economy mattered equally. The molasses jug represented understanding that sweetness came in many forms. The potato masher worked through countless pots of boiled potatoes, turning them into smooth, buttery mounds that accompanied fried chicken, smothered pork chops, and Sunday roasts. African American cooks wielded these tools with practiced rhythm, pressing and twisting until lumps surrendered to creamy consistency. The masher also crushed beans for refried dishes, broke down sweet potatoes for pies, and softened vegetables for baby food when store-bought was unavailable. Children watched the transformation happen, learning that texture mattered as much as seasoning in creating satisfying meals. Some mashers featured wire grids, while others used perforated plates, each producing slightly different results. The tool represented physical labor behind comfort food, the arm strength required to create something smooth from something rough. The rolling pin stretched dough for biscuits, pie crusts, and the dumplings that floated in chicken stew on cold winter evenings. African American bakers kept these wooden cylinders smooth and seasoned, never washing them with soap that might affect the taste of delicate pastries. The weight and balance of a good rolling pin mattered, with experienced cooks choosing pins that felt right in their hands after years of practice. Grandmothers often passed their pins to daughters and granddaughters, transferring not just tools but technique and tradition. The rolling pin also served occasional duty as a meat tenderizer or persuasion device when children misbehaved near cooling pies. Flour dusted and worn smooth, these pins represented the countless hours spent creating flaky crusts and tender biscuits that defined soul food baking. The cornmeal bin occupied a place of honor, in every 1960s soul food kitchen, its contents forming the foundation of cornbread, hush puppies, and the coatings that made fried fish and chicken legendary. African American families bought cornmeal in bulk, storing it in metal or wooden containers that kept moisture and pests at bay. The bin sat within easy reach, its lid lifted dozens of times weekly as cooks measured by hand for recipes memorized through repetition. Yellow and white cornmeal served different purposes, with some families keeping both varieties for specific dishes. The gritty texture of stone ground meal produced cornbread with character that modern processed versions cannot match. The cornmeal bin represented self-reliance, the knowledge that basic ingredients properly stored could feed families through lean times. The grease jar sat on every soul food stove, collecting rendered bacon fat, ham drippings, and cooking oils too valuable to discard after single use. African American cooks understood that saved grease carried concentrated flavor, adding depth to vegetables, gravies, and the next morning's eggs that no fresh oil could provide. The jar was never washed, only wiped clean occasionally, its layers of fats creating a seasoning archive that improved with age. Grandmothers strained hot grease through cloth to remove food particles before adding it to the collection. The jar represented the waste-nothing philosophy that sustained families through hardship, turning what others threw away into culinary gold. Children learned early that good cooking meant saving and reusing. That flavor built over time through patient accumulation. The percolator bubbled on stoves and countertops throughout the 1960s, its glass knob revealing coffee darkening with each cycle through the grounds. African American households gathered around this appliance for morning conversations that set the tone for days ahead. The rhythmic perking sound became kitchen music, signaling that adults were awake and ready to face challenges awaiting. Children learned to recognize when coffee reached proper strength by watching color through that glass top. The percolator stayed warm for hours, offering cups to visitors and family members who wandered through kitchens at different times. Unlike modern drip machines, percolators produced coffee with body and presence that filled rooms with aroma. The percolator represented the slower pace of morning rituals before convenience became the priority. The biscuit cutter pressed perfect rounds from rolled dough every morning in kitchens where homemade biscuits appeared on tables before sunrise. African American cooks kept these simple metal circles sharp and clean, understanding that clean cuts meant biscuits that rose properly in hot ovens. The cutter worked quickly through sheets of dough, producing uniform rounds that baked evenly and looked presentable on serving plates. Some families used drinking glasses when cutters went missing, but purists insisted that proper tools produced proper biscuits. Scraps were gathered, gently re-rolled, and cut again until no dough remained wasted. The biscuit cutter represented the daily discipline of providing fresh bread for families, the small tool enabling the large task of keeping everyone fed with something warm and homemade. The strainer basket hung near sinks and stoves, ready to drain greens, lift fried foods from hot oil, and separate solids from the potlikker that nourished as much as the vegetables themselves. African American cooks used these wire mesh tools constantly, understanding that proper draining meant the difference between crispy and soggy fried chicken. The basket also served to rinse rice until water ran clear, wash field peas before cooking, and strain broths for gravies. Grease dripped through the mesh onto waiting paper, allowing fried foods to crisp rather than steam in their own oil. The strainer represented attention to texture and technique, the understanding that how food was handled after cooking mattered as much as the cooking itself. Well-worn baskets showed the marks of daily use. The wooden spoon collection filled crocks and drawers in every soul food kitchen, each spoon worn to different shapes by years of stirring specific dishes. African American cooks kept dedicated spoons for different purposes, knowing that wood absorbed flavors and a spoon used for sweets should never stir savory pots. The longest spoons reached into deep stock pots where greens simmered for hours, while shorter ones worked batters and gravies. Grandmothers could identify their favorite spoons by feel alone, reaching without looking for the one that fit perfectly. These spoons also served as teaching tools, tasting instruments, and occasionally discipline when children ventured too close to cooling desserts. The wooden spoon collection represented accumulated kitchen wisdom, each worn implement carrying memories of thousands of meals. The enamelware basin served countless purposes in every 1960s soul food kitchen, its white surface with colored trim holding everything from rising bread dough to soaking greens fresh from the garden. African American cooks relied on these lightweight metal bowls because they cleaned easily, resisted staining, and could move from counter to stove without cracking. The basin held water for washing vegetables, caught drippings under roasting meat, and served as mixing bowls for batters too large for regular dishes. Children learned to recognize each basin by its chips and worn spots, knowing which ones grandmother preferred for which tasks. The enamelware was affordable and durable, lasting years through daily use. These basins represented practical elegance, beautiful enough for serving, yet tough enough for real kitchen work. The hot comb, heated on stove burners throughout Black households, its metal teeth ready to straighten hair before church services and special occasions. African American mothers and grandmothers wielded these tools with practiced precision, pulling them through sections of hair while the smell of heated grease filled kitchens. The comb sat on burners until it reached proper temperature, tested carefully on paper or cloth before touching tender scalps. Children learned to sit still during these sessions, knowing that movement meant burns that left lasting memories. The hot comb represented more than grooming. It was ritual and preparation, the effort families put into presenting themselves with dignity. Though not strictly a cooking tool, it lived among kitchen implements and used the same stove heat. The kerosene lamp sat ready in every 1960s soul food kitchen, its glass chimney and fabric wick prepared to provide light when electricity failed or hadn't reached rural homes. African American families kept these lamps filled and trimmed, understanding that cooking continued regardless of power outages. The warm glow illuminated late-night cooking sessions and early morning breakfast preparations when darkness covered the land. Children watched flames dance behind glass while grandmothers stirred pots by lamplight, creating memories of kitchens that seemed magical in flickering shadows. The lamp required regular maintenance, with wicks trimmed and chimneys cleaned to prevent smoking. Even after electricity became reliable, families kept kerosene lamps as backup, reminders of times when light itself required effort and planning. Time equals 1 second greater than flour sack towels hung from every oven door and hook in 1960s soul food kitchens, their soft cotton absorbing spills and drying dishes with efficiency that store-bought towels couldn't match. African American families saved cloth sacks that held bulk flour, washing and hemming them into towels that improved with each laundering. The fabric grew softer over time, becoming lint-free and highly absorbent through years of use. Women embroidered edges or added colorful stitching, transforming humble sacks into kitchen decorations that showed pride. The towels wrapped hot bread, covered rising dough, and lined baskets holding biscuits on their way to tables. Flour sack towels represented the waste-nothing philosophy, the ability to see potential in items others discarded. Nothing bought from stores matched their quality once properly broken in. The sausage stuffer appeared in kitchens during hog killing season, its metal cylinder and plunger transforming ground meat into links that fed families through winter. African American cooks packed seasoned pork into natural casings, twisting at intervals to create sausages that hung in smokehouses or filled freezers. The stuffer required strength and coordination, with one person cranking while another guided casings. Children watched this transformation, learning that preserved meat meant security when fresh supplies ran short. The seasoning blends varied by family, recipes guarded and passed between generations. The sausage stuffer represented self-sufficiency and planning, understanding that autumn work created winter abundance. These tools connected families to agricultural rhythms that groceries would obscure. The apple corer worked through bushels of fruit during canning season, removing centers with circular blades that made quick work of apple butter and pie-filling production. African American cooks used these simple tools to process windfalls and bargain fruit into preserves that sweetened the winter breakfast. The corer pushed through flesh cleanly, ejecting seeds and tough centers while leaving usable fruit ready for slicing. Children often helped with coring, their small hands learning the twist and push motion that cleared apples efficiently. The tool also prepared fruit for drying on screens in late summer sun, creating chewy treats that lasted months without refrigeration. Apple corers represented the seasonal work of preservation, the understanding that abundance required capture before it spoiled. The egg basket traveled between hen house and kitchen daily in households where chickens provided fresh eggs that store-bought could never match. African American families who kept poultry understood that gathering eggs required proper containers, wire baskets that allowed air circulation while protecting fragile shells. The basket hung near back doors, ready for morning collection trips that children often performed before school. Eggs arrived in kitchens, still warm, their freshness evident in bright yolks that stood tall when cracked into skillets. The basket represented connection to land and livestock, the work required to produce food rather than simply purchasing it. Even families without chickens often kept decorative egg baskets, memories of rural roots that urban migration hadn't erased. The spice tin collection lined shelves and filled drawers in every 1960s soul food kitchen, metal containers protecting precious seasonings that transformed simple ingredients into memorable meals. African American cooks accumulated these tins over years, some holding store-bought spices while others contained blends mixed according to family traditions. Paprika, cayenne, and black pepper appeared most frequently, colors fading on labels handled countless times. Some tins held unusual ingredients, specialty spices brought from travels, or gifted by friends who understood their value. The collection grew through decades, with children inheriting tins still half full of seasonings grandmothers had purchased. These containers represented accumulated flavor knowledge, understanding that proper seasoning distinguished good cooking from great. The meat thermometer hung near stoves in kitchens where holiday roasts and Sunday hams required precise cooking that guesswork couldn't guarantee. African American cooks who invested in large cuts understood that proper internal temperature meant the difference between success and failure. The thermometer's dial showed when pork reached safe temperatures and beef achieved desired doneness, removing anxiety from special occasion cooking. Grandmothers who cooked by instinct sometimes distrusted these instruments, but younger cooks appreciated the certainty. The thermometer traveled between oven and counter as roasts progressed. Readings announced to family members waiting hungrily. This tool represented the meeting of traditional cooking and modern precision, willingness to adopt methods that improved results. The recipe box sat on kitchen counters and shelves, its index cards holding handwritten instructions that connected generations through food. African American families filled these boxes with recipes copied from mothers, clipped from magazines, and created through experimentation that achieved perfection. The cards showed stains from ingredients splattered during cooking, worn edges evidence of frequent use. Some recipes required translation, measurements given in handfuls, and cooking times described as until done by cooks who work by feel. Children inherited these boxes, discovering grandmother's secrets in fading ink on yellow cards. The recipe box represented culinary heritage preserved in tangible form, knowledge that might vanish when elders passed. These humble containers held more than instructions. They held family history. Storing bread with celery stalks to maintain freshness was an African American pantry trick that produced remarkable results in households across the country. Grandmothers would place a stalk or two inside bread boxes and storage bags, somehow extending the loaf's softness by several days beyond what seemed possible. Modern food scientists now understand that celery releases moisture at a rate that perfectly balances bread's tendency to dry out without promoting mold growth. The celery sacrificed itself, becoming dry while the bread stayed fresh. This technique was valuable in households where bread was baked weekly and needed to last between baking days. Women traded this knowledge at church gatherings, perfecting the ratio through shared experience.
Wild grape must connected plantation kitchens to the native abundance of the American South. Muscadine and scuppernong grapes grew untended along fences and forest edges, providing a dependable late summer harvest. Enslaved workers gathered the clusters and crushed them by hand to create a tangy juice that could be fermented slightly for a refreshing drink or boiled into a syrupy must used to season grains and greens. This technique echoed West African traditions of using fruit reductions to brighten savory dishes. After emancipation, muscadine wine and homemade grape jellies became hallmarks of Southern foodways, and small farms still produce them today. The careful gathering and slow simmering required patience and skill, qualities that defined the cooking of those who made the most of every wild resource. Wild grape must stand as both a practical recipe and a testament to how African American cooks merged Old World techniques with New World ingredients, leaving a flavor that continues to shape regional preserves and beverages across the Carolinas and Georgia.
Applying mayonnaise to remove water stains from wooden furniture was an African American remedy that furniture experts now endorse. Grandmothers would spread mayonnaise over white rings left by wet glasses, cover with cloth, and let it sit overnight, revealing restored wood by morning. Food scientists understand that mayonnaise's combination of oil and vinegar penetrates wood grain, rehydrating dried fibers, while mild acid dissolves mineral deposits. This technique saved countless tables from permanent damage without expensive refinishing. The hack required only pantry staples and patience, making it accessible to any household. Women passed this knowledge through generations, rescuing precious furniture that represented significant family investments.
Hoghead cheese was a triumph of resourcefulness, transforming every part of the animal into a dish of surprising elegance. After a hog was butchered, the head was simmered slowly with onions, herbs, and spices until the meat fell from the bone. The rich broth was strained and cooled, setting into a savory jelly that held tender shreds of meat and subtle seasoning. Sliced and served cold with crackers or bread, it became a delicacy at gatherings where nothing was wasted and flavor was celebrated. Making it required patience and skill, with families sharing techniques that varied from one household to the next. Children watched the slow process with a mix of curiosity and awe, learning that thrift could create unexpected pleasures. Today, few people undertake the labor of Hoghead cheese, and store-bought versions lack the character of the homemade original, but its history endures as a testament to resilience and the deep respect African-American cooks held for every gift the animal provided.
Using bacon grease to season cast iron skillets was the cornerstone of African-American kitchen maintenance for generations. Grandmothers carefully saved rendered bacon fat in ceramic crocks kept near the stove, using it to coat skillets after each washing and before storage. Scientists now confirm that animal fats create superior polymerized seasoning layers compared to vegetable oils, bonding more effectively with iron at high temperatures. The practice produced naturally non-stick surfaces that improve with age and continued use. This technique was taught to daughters standing at their mother's elbows, watching simple pork fat transform rough metal into cooking treasures. The seasoned skillets became family heirlooms passed down through generations with pride.
Stewed field peas with cornbread was a Southern staple that seemed to appear on tables no matter how hard times got. Field peas were inexpensive, easy to grow, and dried well enough to last through seasons, making them a dependable ingredient when other food was scarce. My grandmother simmered them slowly with onion, maybe a scrap of pork if any was left, until the peas broke down into a thick, savory stew. Cornbread was baked alongside, crumbly and warm, and served as the perfect companion, soaking up every bit of broth. Together they made a full meal, packed with enough substance to keep workers fed after long days in the fields or factories. Field peas were humble compared to black-eyed peas or butter beans, but they carried a taste of the land, earthy and comforting. For families with little money to spare, this pairing was dependable, stretching across generations as a dish of both necessity and pride. Stewed field peas with cornbread filled stomachs, warmed hearts, and reminded everyone that simple food could still be good food.
Using coffee grounds to deodorize refrigerators was standard practice in African American households decades before commercial deodorizers existed. Grandmothers would place bowls of spent grounds on refrigerator shelves where they absorbed odors from onions, fish, and leftovers with remarkable effectiveness. Scientists have since confirmed that coffee's porous structure and nitrogen content make it exceptionally effective at trapping volatile odor compounds. The grounds work better than baking soda for many strong smells. This hack recycled kitchen waste into a cleaning solution, exemplifying the waste-nothing philosophy of resourceful households. Women who couldn't afford commercial products created their own solutions, proving that ingenuity could replace spending.
Shepherd's pie with mashed sweet potatoes was a clever twist on an old classic that fit the budget of black families in the 1960s. Instead of pricey white potatoes, sweet potatoes from the garden were boiled, mashed, and spread on top of a filling made from scraps of meat and vegetables. My grandmother would use whatever was left, bits of beef, chicken, or even pork, chopped small and cooked with onions, carrots, or peas until it formed a savory base. The sweet potato topping baked into a golden layer that balanced the salty meat with a touch of natural sweetness. It was hearty enough to fill everyone, but cheap enough to make even during lean weeks. Sweet potatoes were plentiful in many southern gardens, and they stretched farther than most vegetables because they were filling and rich in flavor. Shepherd's pie with mashed sweet potatoes was more than just food. It was a statement of ingenuity. Families made do with what they had and still put something warm and comforting on the table. That golden crust represented thrift and care, carrying both survival and love in every spoonful.
Placing a wooden spoon across boiling pots to prevent overflow was a technique every African American grandmother seemed to know instinctively. When pasta water or milk threatened to bubble over, laying a wooden spoon across the pot's rim would mysteriously calm the foam. Food scientists have since explained that wood's dry surface destabilizes bubbles on contact, while the spoon's temperature causes rapid bubble collapse. This hack saved countless stovetops from sticky messes and allowed multitasking cooks to attend other duties without constant watching. Grandmothers would position their spoons and turn to other tasks, confident their pots would behave. Children watched this seeming magic and learned that traditional knowledge often outpaced scientific understanding.
Pine needle tea offered a bright and restorative drink when fresh produce was scarce during cold months. Enslaved foragers collected the youngest green needles from longleaf and loblolly pines, rinsed them carefully, and steeped them in hot water until the brew released a light citrus aroma. Rich in vitamin C, this tea helped ward off scurvy and brought a welcome freshness to winter diets heavy with salt-preserved foods. The practice echoed both indigenous traditions and West African herbal knowledge, merging two continents' wisdom into a single sustaining cup. Families continued to brew pine needle tea well after emancipation, and it remains popular among modern herbalists for its gentle flavor and reputed immune-boosting qualities. Its evergreen scent and warm golden color remind us that even in the most barren season, the forest offered nourishment. Pine needle tea illustrates how observing the land and respecting its cycles allowed people to find both medicine and comfort, turning what others overlooked into a sustaining daily ritual that strengthened body and spirit alike.
Rubbing butter on minor burns was dismissed by modern medicine before researchers discovered the science behind this African American remedy. Grandmothers would immediately apply cold butter to small kitchen burns, providing instant cooling relief and creating a protective barrier against infection. While doctors initially criticized this practice, studies have since shown that fat content creates an occlusive layer that locks in moisture and protects damaged skin from bacteria. The cold temperature also provided immediate pain relief by numbing nerve endings at the burn site. This hack was passed from mother to daughter in kitchens where cast iron skillets and wood stoves made burns a common occurrence. Women kept dedicated butter dishes near stoves specifically for this purpose.
Chicken wing stew was one of those meals that would surprise modern ears, since wings were once the cheapest part of the bird. My grandmother bought them in bulk when she could, piling them into pots with onions, celery, and carrots. Slowly simmered, the wings gave up their fat and flavor, turning thin broth into rich gravy. She thickened it with flour or cornstarch, serving it hot over rice or bread to stretch it even further. It was messy eating, but no one complained because the taste was so comforting. Wings may be prized today, but in the 1960s they were scraps, turned into nourishment by clever hands. She said every part of the bird had value if you treated it with respect. Chicken wing stew carried the spirit of thrift, transforming what others dismissed into something that filled the house with warmth. It was proof that good cooking did not depend on wealth, only patience and care.
Placing brown paper bags under fresh baked bread to cool was wisdom passed down through generations of African American bakers. The paper absorbed excess moisture while allowing just enough steam to escape, preventing soggy crust while keeping the interior tender. Modern food scientists now understand this creates perfect humidity balance, maintaining bread quality far better than cooling racks. Grandmothers knew instinctively what laboratories took decades to confirm. The brown paper's porous structure wicked away condensation without removing essential moisture from the crumb. Women saved their grocery bags specifically for this purpose, washing and reusing them until worn thin. Church bake sales featured loaves, cooled this way, their crusts perfectly crisp.
Elderflower. Cordial brought delicate sweetness and subtle healing to kitchens that often lacked sugar and fruit. When elder shrubs burst into fragrant clusters in early summer, gatherers clipped the blossoms and steeped them in water with a touch of honey or sorghum to create a lightly floral syrup. This cordial could be sipped as a soothing drink, stirred into simple desserts, or used as a gentle remedy for coughs and fevers. The method reflected old-world European customs while blending with African-American herbal practice, showing how cultures met in the shared search for flavor and wellness. Long after emancipation, elderflower cordial remained a quiet luxury in rural households, prized for its refreshing taste during hot southern days. Today, it reappears in cocktails and artisanal sodas, but its roots lie in careful foraging and centuries of folk medicine. Elderflower cordial proves that even in times of want, people found ways to capture the fleeting perfume of summer and preserve it for moments of calm and celebration.
Which forgotten kitchen item sparks your memories? Drop it in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more journeys through the kitchens that shaped soul food history.